So coming into 2024, either we get a financial crisis, rates go to zero, or we keep raising rates, but not as fast as governments are spending money because they're just trying to keep people doing things, and the rates are negative. That we get to crypto around 70,000 by the end of 2024, and that's a combination of the crypto halving event, right? Maybe there's going to be a few ETFs launched by a large asset manager in the US and Europe and China, or maybe Hong Kong, to be specific. So we regain the all-time high by end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside.
Boom, we're back. Pod 116 of the world's most bullish podcast. That's right, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit. Brought to you, as always, by Mr. All-In, a.k.a. the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, a.k.a. the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, a.k.a. the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, she's not here. Apparently in Italy, drinking Starbucks in Venice.
It'd be hilarious if she actually is drinking Starbucks in Italy. Like, isn't that the Homer coffee over there?
Somewhere.
It's meant, sure, Italians drink good coffee, right? But you'll probably find a crappy American Starbucks and drink some.
I say, are they legal in Italy?
No, let's see. You find out.
I'm pretty sure they will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we start, I wanted to give a shout out this week to a new book. One that I bet you haven't ever seen before. It's Bitcoin, the Digital Gold, a guide for proud parents and doting grandparents by Ralph Lennox.
Ooh.
It's actually quite new out, and it's written by the dad of someone we all know. So basically, it's Susie Lennox, if you remember her from our company. So she's recently left the company that you guys work for and I used to. So I was just going, congrats, see you later. And it's obviously saw Bitcoin on my LinkedIn profile, which I was surprised she was like reacting to it, seeming like for the first time, because I posted about Bitcoin so many fucking times. Talked to her at length about Bitcoin as well. But she said, downloaded Bitcoin lessons, loved it. Oh, do you know my dad wrote a book about Bitcoin? I went, no, I didn't know this. What's it called? It's called Bitcoin, the Digital Gold. And it's on Amazon. I'm like, no, holy shit. So I'll send you guys the link.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, the Digital Gold, a guide for proud parents and doting grandparents, is on Amazon, 15 quid. Ordered it the other day. And it's not, it's written not as like a book, say like the Bitcoin Standard, to be a comprehensive guide to Bitcoin. It's written as a memoir. So it basically details this guy's experience of coming into Bitcoin, how he found it, what challenges he had, and his journey. And then essentially it does turn into quite a comprehensive view. So I was a little bit worried reading it, just because you're like, is he going to start talking about crypto? And I saw there was a chapter on crypto. Here we are.
Oh, did he have a shitcoin journey?
And to be fair, he did. But then he very quickly goes, but now I'm a proud Bitcoin maximalist. And he goes, my original portfolio, he comes from the typical investing kind of remit of diversification. So he came in with 50% Bitcoin, 25% ETH, 25% a random pot of shitcoins, about 20 different shitcoins. And he very quickly, you say he did all this back in 2017, did all right. And then but a couple of years later, he realized, these are just, he calls them altcoins, but I'll forgive him on that. It's his only faux pas in the book, calling them altcoins, not shitcoins. But he's now sold them all, converted them all into Bitcoin, and he's now making sure and building up and ensuring that the biggest reason he's doing this now is, I think he's been successful, it sounds like, in his life. He has enough. He is doing this for his kids and grandkids to pass down generational wealth, and he is worried that his home and his money will be taxed or confiscated by the government at some point, and he wants to make sure he can definitely pass on some of his wealth to his grandchildren that he thinks will absolutely really, really need it because of the state of the world right now. And you go, fair play. And can't believe it. This is someone that is so close to like our like friendship group and our kind of social circle. He's a boomer. Yeah, this guy's in like his late 60s, I think. You know, he's not a young fella. And let's go, this is awesome that he has found Bitcoin at such a late stage in his life. He's got it. I read this book, like looking for mistakes and to criticize him. I didn't see any. But then I look at the end and it's like, what was his references? It's the Bitcoin Standard. It's Saylor. You know, it's Satoshi. He's read the white paper. It's like, oh, well, no wonder there's no fucking mistakes in this. This guy is well read. He references Lynn Alden, and you're like, oh, well. And at the end of the book, it dates to how recent it is. He references the BlackRock ETF. That's how he leaves the book. And you go, well, bloody hell, he's bang up to date. So yeah, it's a shout out to someone that we kind of like, we're just one layer away. You know, we literally know his daughter. And fair play.
So is she a Bitcoiner?
No, she's not.
What? It's usually like, you know, feeds up in generations, not down.
No,
this is true. This is actually a really good point. You're right. It normally feeds. It's not from boomer to
which is why I give him all the kudos, because so often boomers have been orange pilled by a younger member of their family. It sounds like this guy orange pilled himself, and you know he's grown up in fiat land for that extra 20 or 30 years over us. And so, yeah, he kind of like even more embedded in this fiat world of, oh, no, like the way to make money is making shares, bonds, property, maybe a bit of gold. He's been brainwashed with that. And he's managed to throw all that in the bin and go, nah.
Well, it's not even gold now, is it? It's like 60% bonds, 40% stocks. And if you have 60% bonds, those should keep the 40% stocks from dipping down. Yeah. That's actually what they're feeding now. It's not gold. Gold's not even on the menu.
Yeah. I'm actually really, really disappointed that our friend has left the business and
I know
I can't get a signed copy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great.
Well, here's one. I don't think she lives too far away from me. So I message her, say, don't suppose you can get 3 copies of your dad's book signed?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I would love that, yeah.
This is brilliant.
Did you pass on the pod to her?
No. I'm actually gonna message her on LinkedIn because I only finished it today. So I was gonna message her on LinkedIn just going, your dad's book's fucking great. Because I wanted to reserve judgment. You never know, right? Normally when people say they're a Bitcoin or they're written about Bitcoin, I go, is it going to be a shitcoin book? Is it going to be a trading book? Is it just going to be fucking wrong? This guy could join this pod and talk like us. I just know he could, because this book, but it's not going to freaking shatter. You're not going to learn anything necessarily, because like we all get it, and we've read the same books as him, and he's just saying his experience. But for the average layman, I would absolutely recommend this book, because if anything, I would recommend probably this book to our mums and dads, because he's written that he is a mum and dad. He's a granddad now, so
yeah,
and it's written from his perspective, coming in with all his misgivings, going, I don't think it's going to work, this newfangled thing. He writes it from his perspective as a 6-year-old coming into Bitcoin, and you go, holy shit, that's quite a unique angle, because not many people have done that. And he gets it all the way, like to Bitcoin maxi level. And you go, fair, but there's not many people that get that far anyway. Nearly everyone gets diverted off by the shiny shitcoin, or I'm going to trade it, or they always like veer off the path of where you should be going through greed or whatever.
I think everyone's had that thought about trading, haven't they?
Yeah.
I remember when I first bought Bitcoin, I was like, oh yeah, I'll sell it. And then you're so fucking deep into it, you're just like, I'm not trading this. Doesn't matter if it goes down, it's going to come back up.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go a step further in the fact that he's gone so far as to publish a book, and I'm trying to find other works by Ralph Lennox and don't see anything. So is this not only an ode to Bitcoin, but it's actually the first time he's ever even wrote a book. So he's sat down, taking the time to publish this, and then leave something behind for both his kids and his grandkids.
Yeah.
That's deep.
It really is. And I feel for him, because it's like with us trying to orange pill like your parents and stuff. But I think he's got it the other way around, where he's trying to orange pill his kids. I know one of them, and was talking about Bitcoin for freaking years, to her, and she was open to it, but was never engaged in the conversation. Like, she was very clearly not a Bitcoiner herself. Yeah, when I look back on this, you said you got into Bitcoin in 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I was talking to her then about this. So maybe
imagine that, like, you speaking to your dad. It's like, what have you been up to, Dad, this week? Oh, getting into Bitcoin, writing some tweets to some Keynesians. And it's like, Dad, stop offending people on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, just shit posting some shit coiners. What have you done with your week?
Well, obviously, we talked about me trying to orange pill my daughter, and again doing it the other way around, and that was from a young Bitcoiner on another podcast, which we won't mention. I'm just going to go back to the name of the person, of who it was. Samantha DeWall. It was, wasn't it? So yeah, she didn't get it. She knows each and every. She's behind that door right now. Every Tuesday we're recording, and I come out sometimes, or I'll see her in the next morning. She's just like, "He's still talking about that Bitcoin thing," So it's kind of, the more we talk about it, the more it puts them off it.
But it's also at what age do you have a decent enough understanding of money and what money should be in order to look at an alternative? Because, like with my kids, they're really quite young, and I can't even bring the concept of Bitcoin up to them because it just go over their head, because they don't really understand money. Like, they just want to, you give them £1, like they want to give it away to all their friends for a piece of grass, because they want that piece of grass because their time preference is so out of kilter. They just don't understand what money really does. And like they say, well, why do you have to work all day? Because I have to pay the bills.
Yeah. Just on this book, we definitely you definitely need to reach out to her. Hardcover, as always, but Amazon is saying that there are it won't come until the 19th of April 2024.
Do paperback. I don't think there's any hardcovers. I think what it is, I don't know what it is actually, but there's been quite a few books recently. Like Lynn Alden was one.
Yeah.
It's just go. It's fine. This is just a paperback. It's fine. It's not going to get wrecked.
Yeah.
If anything, I must admit, I find it easier to read because you can like bend it. It's just like the hardcover. It's almost, you have to read it properly, which I guess is kind of good. You have to turn the pages one by one, but in this you can just go, "Oh, where was I?"
Yeah.
So I like it. It's more of a casual read. It's a very easy read. Like, it won't take you long because it's
110 pages. So yeah,
he's preaching to the converted here. So But
Yeah,
what do you reckon?
looking
Should
at
we
the
invite
Lynn
him on?
Alden,
Should we invite him
That's-
on?
I think we should. As a
Yeah.
first guest, well, not as the first guest because we had Young MBA, didn't we?
As the first probably proper guest that isn't
Yeah,
someone in our friendship group. This
Ooh.
is he'd be a guy we don't know at all.
I think it'd be fantastic, and we could make it happen for sure.
Yeah, and we could just just see what his view is on trying to orange pill your kids. And these
Yeah.
and when these aren't kids as we talk about them, this is like his kids who are in their 30s.
Yeah.
And it must be so annoying to be trying to orange pill your kids when they're 30 odd, going, what the fuck aren't you getting here? When your kid's 7, I thinking fine. But when your kid's 35, hello, like your dad's a Bitcoiner here.
That's a great episode. It's got to happen. It's
The
got
Bitcoin
to happen.
movement.
And also his background as well, because
he must be a techie.
either a techie or in financial services of some sort, and understanding, what was going on in 2016 specifically, because that's when he references. He was at a point in his life, maybe it was retirement, early retirement, but all of these questions we need to ask.
So I would guess it's just the retail boom which got him noticing, like all of us. Because if he's in the tech sphere, it's just, Bitcoin came to the forefront a bit more. It's a bit more of a mature market than it was, say, 4 years before, when not many people knew about it. So I assume it's going to be similar to us, but he got in deeper earlier.
Well, Ralph Lennox, there is an invitation to the World's Most Bullish podcast coming out to you very soon.
Nice.
Yeah, let's make it happen. It's a great way to start the show. So let's get into the first story. $750,000 to $1 million per Bitcoin by 2026. Now, we were talking about this just before we started to press record, and there's a few things that Dr. Evil 10% wants to say to some people when this moment happens, I'm sure. Like,
what do you mean? I fucking told you so. Why didn't you listen?
That too.
I was going to say there'll be a lot said. But yeah, it's just, I look at price predictions, and for me, I understand it, makes more people more bullish and people get excited by it because he's in the business. But I'm just like, well, what did he reference? He referenced that it was based on the halving and ETFs to go up to 75k. Then he thinks it will just be a general bull market to take it for even further by 2026. So I don't know. I think it's probably a bit over the top, but I just don't really pay much attention to the price predictions personally.
Well, my take on any price predictions, and it sounds bullish, but I also actually think that they're wrong, and they're very wrong because we underestimate where it will actually go to. And I always reference the internet. When the internet came out and it was being used more wide stream, fantastic. You could go on certain websites and could do certain things, but now it's a staple, hardcore thing in your life. You need it. It's vital for most things, if not everything, to happen. And
you've just made me think. I'm listening to an audiobook called Money in One Lesson. My God, it appalls me. It starts talking about how we need inflation. I don't know where I came up with this. I must have read a recommendation about it. So I thought I'll read or listen to that. What you were saying then, just about the staple, it's just made me think about all the shit which has come out his mouth. It's basically written by a Keynesian, like how we need this, otherwise we would end up in total. I can never say the word. Totalitarianism. Yeah, and it's just like we're ending up that way anyway.
Yeah.
Like, just look at Canada and New Zealand, and even the UK to a certain extent.
That's a great line. We need inflation to stop authoritarian governments. I mean, who told you that? An authoritarian?
Move away. Yeah, move away from the gold standard, and it's just like,
Is that the book by Gavin Jackson, by the way?
Bear in mind, so I'll just have a quick look. So I had to load it up before just to. Yeah, by Gavin Jackson. Oh, it has got Bitcoin reference in it, but
yeah,
I'm up to chapter 5, and I'm just like, it's a bag of shit so far, unless it's going to do a big corner.
I've got exactly the same. So I've got the hardcover version on my shelf. It's looking at me, and I was actually planning on. I think I'm just going to make the plunge and get Lynn's book, paperback copy, and just wait for the hard copy to eventually come out. But ultimately, I was going to try and compare the two, because obviously she talks about money.
It's unless it does a hard turn in it.
Yeah,
it's a bag of shit. But obviously, read it, confirm what I'm saying. Don't trust, verify.
Oh no, I've started it already,
and it's just,
and so far it's a bit like
it tries to measure them against each other, but then it's just like, but it's leaning heavily like into the Keynesian inflation monetary system, and you're just kind of going, it's just, you know, like he said, oh yeah, talks about Milton Friedman versus Keynes, and he goes, oh yeah, Milton Friedman, all his predictions are wonderful. And then the 80s showed deflation through oil. I'm like, you do realize what happened in the 70s, dickhead? It was a petrodollar, fucking moron, which managed to bring the oil price down. Otherwise, it would have kept on shooting up. You fucking idiot.
That's a book no one should buy.
Yeah, it's a terrible book so far, but I'll have to finish it. And probably bring up. Sorry, I went on a complete and utter tangent then. It just made me remember it.
I've got one of the biggest bullish stories of the year, and you're just talking about a book that you hate. So, $1 million Bitcoin, right? So this is from Arthur Hayes, and Arthur Hayes isn't just some random guy. He is actually very, very well read. He's one of the few that I'm subscribed to his newsletter. Every dickhead on crypto Twitter has a newsletter, but this guy is actually.
But he runs a platform, doesn't he? He runs a trading platform. So this is evidently to stoke interest in order to make people trade more.
This guy is so rich, he doesn't give a shit about that anymore. He's out of the game. And if you...
Why does he run a platform then?
He doesn't really anymore. I think he's fucked off. He might be CEO in name, but it's a bit like with Jack Dorsey. Like, oh, he was CEO of Twitter for ages. It's like, yeah, but was he? Kind of phoning it in, you know, for once you reach billionaire status, you kind of, the company kind of runs itself. You come in for board meetings. Arthur's the same kind of guy. And he's a bit like a Lynn Alden in my reading of him, as in he really understands, because he comes from a deep financial background. He's a banker from an origin. And then he saw this divergence of Bitcoin coming out and straight away pivoted from the financial world and thought, I have all the knowledge of trading platforms. I can create one in the crypto land and make bank, because no one else knows how to build a good platform. I know how these things are built. I'll build one over here for crypto and I'll become a billionaire. He did it. Did it, created BitMEX. So, but then now he just talks largely and just writes his monthly newsletters. And I think we've had his newsletters on here a few times. So actually, I'll play the clip of him.
So I have to ask, where do you think Bitcoin is going? Is this something that, breaks 100,000? Is this something that breaks 1 million? Is Michael Saylor going to be a hero or the world's biggest L? What do you think?
So my working model is that, we're going to continue chopping around 25, 20, 30,000 this year. As we get to some sort of financial disturbance and people recognize that real rates are negative, if government are growing, if the economy is growing at a nominal rate of 10%, but I'm only getting 5%, 6%, even though it's high, people are on the margin going to start buying other stuff, crypto being one of those things. So coming into 2024, either we get a financial crisis, rates go to zero, or we keep raising rates, but not as fast as governments are spending money because they're just trying to keep people doing things, and the rates are negative. That we get to crypto around 70,000 by the end of 2024, and that's a combination of the crypto halving event, right? Maybe there's going to be a few ETFs launched by large asset managers in the U.S. and Europe and China, or maybe Hong Kong, to be specific. So we regain the all-time high by the end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside, right? And we're going to, whatever the level is, there's gonna be a round number everyone's gonna be focusing on. I guess like Bitcoin hit 69,999, didn't hit 70,000, and then it's gonna go and just crash, 75, 80, 90%, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. But yeah, so my upside target-ish is sort of the $750,000 million level, 2026 time frame, just because, again, I believe this is going to be the largest market in bull market in financial assets we have ever seen in human history. So not only will Bitcoin be at a ridiculous price, NASDAQ will be at a ridiculous price. S&P will be at a ridiculous price.
It's a relatively short clip. It's still about 2 minutes, but he just talks it through, going, where is his rationale coming from? And largely he's just going, like, the crash is coming. The crash is coming in a year or two. There's a big financial crash, and there will be a run to sound money. So he thinks next year Bitcoin will be about 70K. Essentially, we will break all-time highs, but not by a huge amount, but we'll break all-time highs next year. After quite a lot of chopping at this 25 to 30K, probably for the next 6 months to a year, but then the end of the year we'll smash through the all-time high. And then going forward from that, the next year, he thinks it's going to get nuts, and we can go to 750 to $1 million, and that will largely be brought because of a huge financial collapse somewhere. Something will happen.
I think the 75 to 100K probably isn't far off within the next couple of years, is what I'd agree with. I just don't know if the collapse will happen straight away, because we keep on getting propped up by more money being printed and then high interest rates. So they're basically going print, interest, print, high, like this. And it's basically, I just don't know if it's going to collapse quite yet. And also, I think we'll get dragged into CBDCs.
Well, that could be basically what he's saying is he doesn't know what the trigger will be. But look how many triggers there could be right now. There could be climate change thing. There could be a World War III thing. There could be, like, this year we had small banks going under. We're gonna have some big banks going under. There's just pick off the menu of things, right? There's a big fucking list of black swan events. They're all just queued up here. Some are complete like psyopses and false flags, but others are just genuine. Like, we know that the banking collapse is very much real. We know this World War III thing, whether it's a setup or not, is going to cost a fuck ton of money if it does kick off, and tax is going to go up and all that kind of stuff. We know the cost of living crisis is real. We know inflation is very much real. We know we're at a tipping point. So it's just, what is the thing? What is the last straw? What's the straw that broke the camel's back?
On that as well, and again, it comes back to the infamous changing world order. But the fact of what's just gone on between Palestine and Israel, and naturally the US being involved in a war that doesn't concern them, just means that they are even more thinly spread, because now you're supporting the war in Ukraine, you're supporting the war in Israel, you're still, trying to fight China becoming the world's superpower as well. And again, spoiler alert, you're printing more money.
It's that saying, history, what is it? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Like, so the comparison is, you look at like the world powers, and it happened to England, got stretched by the First World War, so they had to pass over the book. You had France were competing, I think, was it for England to become like the superpower back originally, and they became overstretched with the Napoleonic Wars. You've got Rome become overstretched of their overseas territories. And, it's just happened so many times, but apparently this time it's different, isn't it?
Exactly that. But all of these things, as we always say, are there in plain sight, available for us to see. And back to Mr. Rawlins' point, you pick off the menu of what's going to be going wrong. And
I just think it's
will be.
I just think it's very bullish for 1 to 2 years. Kind of like 3 years. He said 2026, didn't he? So I think, well, actually, it's bordering on 2 years now. I'd be very surprised, but obviously, the time will tell.
Yeah, and then the next story just feeds in perfectly because we're going, oh yeah, people don't think there's going to be a financial collapse or whatever. Well, literally, what happened last week to the US debt? Well, they added 275 billion in a single day. That's half the market cap of Bitcoin. They just printed out of thin air, and these big straight lines on the debt that America has is just they're actually relatively rare. These straight lines. It's only happened 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years. They normally just tick up, but yet again, it's another straight line up, and it's just the size of it. Almost on the chart, you can barely see the straight line, but that is half the market cap of Bitcoin that it's just gone up in. They just printed it out of fucking thin air. And what are they doing that for? And this is what you're saying, right? They're doing this to underpin their failing economy. That's why they're doing this.
Yeah, because you think they printed so much between 2020 and 2022, and we've got a little graph on this page by Samson Mao, and it's between December and September, and it's what's that? They've added debt on 4 billion roughly against 29. So that's
trillion. That's trillion.
Sorry, trillion. So that is off my brain, which is not running very quickly today. That is 13-14% in a year after they did it massively between 20 to 2024, roughly about 40%. So they've added on a decent percentage point. Like, I don't know how much money's in existence there, but to bring the debt up by 13-14% is still absolutely monstrous, isn't it?
Yeah. And the GDP of America is 23 trillion. And their debt is not.
We get the debt clock out. It's been out for a while, but I'll go back to it.
But it's nuts, right? So their entire GDP. So this is, I think people forget what GDP is as well. It basically is for every minute or every hour that every single person works in America, all 330 million of them, all that time and effort, all added up, basically means they create $23 trillion worth of value. So that is the entire output of America. Their debt alone is 33 trillion. So it means they have to completely dedicate an entire year and a half of all their output, which no one can obviously do because you would all starve and produce nothing. And this doesn't include all the interest that is going up on top of this debt.
But it's also like to run the government, which is, it isn't all the people, it isn't the GDP. It's literally to run government functions for the country, which should be a small fraction of that GDP. Yeah. They've run up over what they can produce within a year with no subtractions. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They can't control their spending, so ultimately they put in the hidden tax on the tax, which you're going to have to pay big time at some point. But this time it's different.
Yeah, and I think this is where as well, going back to the first story around the $1 million Bitcoin, this is how we get there, because it doesn't take, this is just one day in America, they print half the market cap of Bitcoin, right? Imagine when this money starts to run away from the dollar. It's 33 trillion sat just in America here of debt. They're printing all this money. It does slosh around. They printed, this $275 billion. this money does end up in the ecosystem to some extent.
But you need it to stimulate the economy, otherwise it would crash and go into deflation.
Yeah, well, I think if you take away the stimulate bit, like they do need it. They actually do need it to underpin their Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
But
it does seem to be, accelerating, because if you look at the value of the dollar, value of the dollar goes like that and it nosedives, doesn't it, over time? And it's how steep is it going? It's going steeper and steeper and steeper. And we're at that time when, how do you save it? And the only solution which comes to my mind is lock people on it by doing a CBDC. You need to lock them so they've got no escape route. But then, if you start a new monetary system on top of it, say if Bitcoin was created after a CBDC, people will go back to the basics, trade for time, trade for services, trade for goods. It'd literally just be, someone makes it, make them mine it, do whatever they want and bring it in. There would be a way to escape it. So it's not all lost. And the fact is, there is an escape chute already.
exactly. And just imagine when, a couple of trillion from this huge market just comes running into Bitcoin. The price goes through the fucking roof, right? There's only, what is it? There's probably a few million Bitcoin max that's even available to buy. That's probably too much. There's probably less than 1 million Bitcoin floating around all the exchanges that's on the open on the market. Once like half of that gets bought, a load of the people selling it will probably take it off and go, what the fuck? What am I selling Bitcoin for? So it just means the supply and demand is going to get insane. And that's where $1 million Bitcoin comes from. It just a rush of like $1 trillion coming to buy Bitcoin when no one wants to sell their Bitcoin. No one wants money in a bank account.
I suppose that's the elasticity. It isn't just, it'll slowly creep up with that.
It'll go straight up.
It'll go straight up because you've only got that amount of Bitcoin available.
Correct.
So it makes me
think...
That
goes back to your point of your 2 to 3 years and it's too soon. Well, it won't be, because that's what's going to happen. Yeah. You'll have all of these events that Mr. All-In were talking about. Then people finally getting it. The government will still try to be pushing the CBDCs. There'll be no liquidity in order to want to get hold of Bitcoin. And then people will just get it.
Yeah.
This, as I say, like the current war, there was actually a story which we've not referenced, but a friend of mine messaged me, whereby apparently Israel police have seized Hamas cryptocurrency accounts with the help of Tether and Binance to freeze them.
So Hamas just happened to keep their crypto accounts available.
Exactly. And that was from WhaleWire as well. So, but ultimately, people will want to use some form of money, digital money, ideally, and not, as we've always heard, gold bars or gold coins. And therefore, no one's being told, oh, we're seizing gold all of a sudden. No, you're not. You're trying to seize the digital assets because that's where the true value is.
But I think with this, people are asking more questions, but I just think the basics are lacking. Like I was thinking to myself the other day about money and what it really is. And I think the most simplistic way is it is a ledger between someone, it's literally, I'm giving you this as a proportion of that because I breed cows. I can't just give you a whole cow for your piece of bread because it's disproportionate. So I give you a ledger, which gives you a certain percentage of that cow, and I use it to buy your bread. But obviously I buy more bread off you. So, and that's how it works. And people talk about intrinsic value and things like that, but it's not, I think, boiling it down, it is, it's a ledger of trading between time, goods, services, between people. And I think people really don't understand that, because you hear like this bullshit, Bitcoin can't be a currency, it's too volatile, it's got no intrinsic value or whatever bullshit, but they don't actually understand the problem which it's solving. And I think until we actually realize what money should be, we're going to struggle to get there.
Yeah, but there's because obviously, yeah, fundamentally it is a ledger. The ledger needs to have certain qualities. It needs to be open and viewable to all. It needs to be censorship resistant. And fundamentally, there needs to be a limited supply of.
But it's jumping on those points. So, like we've seen it, the limited supply going. We've talked about in the inflation. It makes you poorer over time. It devalues it devalues your salary. It devalues your savings if it's not. As we're seeing with current climates, like everything's up by 40%. Why? Because they keep on inflating the monetary supply. When you talk about the decentralized or sorry, I forgot what the word was which you use, kind of like tamper-proof, censorship resistance, is that no one can edit it. It can't be played back. The rules can't be changed unless it's a majority. Or if it does end up with a dodgy majority where someone takes over the miners, you can always fork. And it's what the people choose. And that's where it becomes like the conundrum. How do you take over something which can morph into another chain?
Yeah, it's why I do quite like it's going back to Rhinestones and using that as an example, because sometimes Bitcoin, because it's electronic and it's all in the ether, you just go, it's quite hard to pin it down what you mean. Why is it censorship resistant? Like, why is it? And you just go, well, Rhinestones is like a very primitive version of Bitcoin. It is just a ledger. It's a big fuck off rock that they shoved in the middle of their village. And it had lines on it as to who owned what. And you couldn't change the lines. Everyone knew who had what. And if anyone wanted to change one of the lines and, trade a part of the Rhinestone to another person, it had to be witnessed by senior people within the village. And they would authorize and, and sign it and stuff and go, yeah, that bit of the stone is now being transferred from this person to this person because of this reason. And, well, why weren't there loads of stones? Well, the stones were scarce. You couldn't just get a stone and just start divvying it up. It was one a year. There was a lot of work to get that stone in. That is money. And it probably blows people's minds to think that's money.
Because like I said,
lines on a rock.
It's trading for your time, your property, your services, goods, or whatever. It's not got to be a precious metal. And people cannot get their head around that because it's what they've been taught about gold. It's got to be backed by government or whatever else. And it's a pile of bollocks, isn't it, when you go back to the basic reason for it.
Yeah, Rhinestones.
Yeah, I think Lynn Alden was on Natalie Brunel's podcast, and she said who controls the ledger is in control, essentially. So, and it is exactly that. The world superpower, the US being in control of the ledger, is manipulating the ledger. And unfortunately, just like those who were in power before, they just become too corrupt, or they inflate the ledger, and then it collapses, and then they lose their turn, and it's passed on to somebody else. Now, we know that it takes time and hundreds of years, if not longer, but it always moves on.
Yeah. It's the one thing, it typically, there's a few reasons as to why it would move on. It's either that they become fat and lazy, or there's a sounder, harder.
You're trying to say America's become fat and lazy?
Yeah, you could say that. And because I actually think in this example, it's actually both. So I think there's a double-pronged attack where they have become lazy and fat, and obviously are devaluing their own money at a record rate. But it's the double-pronged attack, which is, they've also, even if they were playing it straight, they would still be seriously hampered by Bitcoin appearing, because it is a sound of money. And no matter what a society or a global power will try, if a sounder, harder version of money appears, wealth will gather into that. It's just natural, because as you just said, we are trading our time for money. So we will trade our time for the soundest, hardest version of money, because it just makes sense. Like, why would you put it in the dollar just because they're the world superpower? But if that's getting inflated away at just even if it was just 2 or 3% a year, but Bitcoin wasn't, and it was staying just at zero, say, why would you ever trade your time for an asset that is losing value as opposed to one that just holds its value? You would just do it, and it will be slowly, and eventually it's a flood, and the floodgates open, and everyone just starts saving their time in the sound of money because it just makes sense.
But how would you stimulate the economy?
I put a butt plug up its ass.
I mean, you actually end up with, I suppose, an economy which functions for proper jobs, things which matter, don't they? And money is rationalized. You kind of go, we've got a limited amount for this government, which would be a smaller government. We can only spend it on essential services. You couldn't make excuses.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. It'd be amazing. And but look at what they're doing instead. Our next story, this is really running well tonight. What's our next story?
Oh, it's about Germany and taxes. Everyone loves a good tax. So this is titled "Tax in the Western World Has Gone Mad." Take a look at Germany. If you lived 1 year and earned $100, you would just keep 19. So I think this is based on being over 100 grand. I think there's some bad assumptions here. That's the effective tax rate of 81%. So your income, 100 or 100 grand. Like I said, I don't believe that it's income tax 45%.
They've done it just so $100 is a nice easy number, right? It's just like.
But I think it's meant to be 100,000 just to put it into context. Because that's where it kick in.
I know, but once you add 3 zeros, everyone gets lost. So
yeah. So income tax at 45%, you lose $45. VAT at 21%. So you assume you spend 50% of income on goods or services, $11. So we've currently lost $56. Solidarity tax, 5.5%. I did read about what that was, but I've forgotten. So and then Medicare, mandatory health insurance, 1.45%. And then tax on death as well, 50%, $19. So what you keep out of all this, or what the kind of like wealth which you keep out of your $100 which you earn is 19. And it, like I said, it does make a lot of assumptions. Someone said later on, there's lots of loopholes to get out of that death tax. But, you know, the kind of question is, why should you have to jump through loops to not get taxed further on the wealth which you've created? You know, when you think about tax, it's like, why? Why would you pay this? It makes no sense. Ultimately, I did something similar to figure out the UK. And I think if you went for your average spends and what most people went, it was 60-something%. It's absolutely through the roof. And then you got secondary tax as well. Everything that you buy has tax on top of the VAT. So you think, oh, you buy a Mars bar, but actually all those workers are being taxed. The company's being taxed, and everything which they have is being taxed. There's this inception of taxes which goes back. You kind of think, how much of that $100? Okay, we've got $19 here. That $19 is actually untaxed when you actually go through the cycle. It gets absolutely insane.
Yeah, I'm surprised Germans aren't kicking up more of a fuss with regards to the tax that they are.
They love efficiency of taxes.
Well, yeah. So the solidarity surcharge for Germans is in relation to, on top of, as we've already mentioned, income tax, corporation tax, and capital gains tax. It was introduced in 1991 to finance the costs of German reunification.
I always love it.
They're paying a tax from 1991 to finance German reunification.
Yeah.
So they're paying something which happened 32 years ago. They're paying a tax for.
Yeah. I love how they name it as well. You know, solidarity tax. So why wouldn't you want to pay that? It sounds so wholesome, right? It's like the Patriot.
Exactly. Yeah. So therefore, you sound unpatriotic if you don't want to pay this tax.
You don't care about your fellow man if you don't pay solidarity tax. And I really like this tweet, mainly because we've discussed this numerous times, but it's been really hard for us to actually articulate, like, what is the tax, say, in the UK, right? Because we have a lot of these taxes, But I always struggled with going, what is the total tax?
It's direct. If you look at it, so if you go the average, you buy a house, council tax, etc., etc. I worked it out, it's 60-something%, and that was only direct tax. So you've got all the kind of like inception taxes, which is impossible to work out.
But it's just trying to get an average, aren't you? So I like how he did VAT. Just assume everyone spends 50% of their income on goods and services. You go, yeah, okay. I think the average person probably does do that. So you go, okay, that's a good way of including VAT on there. Then you got tax on death.
In
That's
the
quite a good
UK,
one. But then
you've also got inheritance tax. So what's that? Is it you pay something like 20% after 300 grand or something like
that? I think it's higher. I think they've upped it. They might be down. I don't know.
But that may catch you. And then you've got capital gains tax. You've also get taxed on your pension if it's above a certain threshold. Is that 20 or 30 grand or something like that? So if you actually pay out over 20 or 30 grand per year on your pension, you get taxed as well.
Yeah, it's the same as income tax. Yeah.
So you're getting taxed on something which you've already been taxed on in the UK.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting just to see like what it would all add up to be, because this is the thing, right? Because usually people focus on your income, like how much do you get in your pay packet, and then what goes straight out. But yeah, because straight away on here, like we've got council tax. Council tax is a huge tax in UK. Yeah, it's my biggest bill now, by far. So it'd be interesting just to see have all these factored in and then go, but then capital gains we just got screwed. Yeah, I was talking to my brother the other day and he's working out his taxes for the year, still assuming it was 12 grand cap gains. I'm like, young MBA, it's 6 now. They halved it. He's like, what? I'm like,
do you know something about this? Is they upped the ISA allowance to 30 grand. I thought that was quite interesting because, like, my wife said it to me, and I was like, it can't be as straightforward as that. So they've reduced the capital gains from 12 to 6, but now you can go up to 30 in an ISA. So it's like, what are they going to do with that ISA?
Yeah, it's locked away, isn't it? Locked away for years.
Well, it's not, because you can take out of an ISA whenever you want.
Oh, actually, yeah. What was the limit before?
20.
That's quite.
And before that, it was 12 or something. It's crept up over the years.
There's something going on there. That can't be just a nicety.
Yeah.
There's a long term.
Well, they know that your buying power is a lot less. And the fact is that, yes, you may be locking that money up in order to make more money, but at the same time, on the flip side of it, they're inflating the money away.
Yeah, but the fact is that, well, an ISA, I use ISAs for my stocks and shares. So, I can put in 30 grand if I ever had that available per year. But I just don't believe that nothing happens to that.
Yeah, you're right.
And you can't.
I also got an admission as well in terms of we were talking about key lock boxes and safety deposit boxes as well, and in terms of if you didn't want to have a safe at your house, and there was only, I think it's last year, some safety deposit boxes in Miami that were seized. And therefore that's something that I've got to rule out once again.
Oh yeah, I understand maybe putting parts of your seed phrase in a thing, but putting say all the phrase or your ledger in there, like, it's just a total no-go, because literally, like, we're saving this right for when the banks collapse, but then where's your like get out of jail free money when the banks collapse? Oh shit, it's in the bank. Like, you just put it in the worst place you could have put it, right?
Well, I actually looked at an independent safety deposit box. I think it was like St. James's Wealth or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but still to the point, it doesn't matter. Any safety deposit,
it's not safe.
Box company is being seized, and it's not safe.
Yeah, they get broken into as well. And then
Yeah.
it's weird when you read the T's and C's on this stuff. You know, in the event of a bank robbery, you're not like, unless you independently insure it, and obviously insuring a ledger that has Bitcoin on it is going to be very tough. If you put some jewelry in there or something like that, then potentially you could insure that. But good luck insuring some Bitcoin that, you know, it's going to be tough for the insurance company to know whether you really had it in there. You know, they're going to, I hate to see the hoops you'd have to jump through. And yeah, like these safety deposit boxes aren't always as secure as they say. Like these things do get stolen. Like there's plenty of stories of people going in, opening up safety deposit boxes decades after they put stuff in it, and they're just empty. And it's just, well, we don't know what happened. Like, what was in there? You go, well, I didn't tell you, but it was this and this. You go, well, it's at your risk kind of thing. Like, we don't know what was in there, so we don't know what was stolen, and you haven't checked it for 20 years, so well, unlucky, I guess. So that terrifies me. Is like Bitcoin's one of those things that it's not like gold, like that you need to almost pay a third party to secure it for you. It's everyone can secure it for a couple of £100. You can secure it yourself. You just got to think it through. You know, no matter how small your house is, there's cubby holes or whatever like that you can secure your Bitcoin in your house.
I think going back to the story about this tax is, even when we take away inheritance, you kind of wonder, why are you paying 60% to your government of your income? It just makes no sense, does it?
No. Well, actually, I've just replied to this tweet going, you've forgotten one of the taxes. Inflation. Inflation isn't even on here.
Yeah,
so in that year in Germany, like if it was this year, for example, was it 20-30% property tax on that? So of that 19, there's probably another 20-30% gone. So I'd be surprised if they even have $10 left. They're probably below $10 if you factor in inflation. Because if you held that money for the whole year and didn't spend it, you lost an extra 20% of the spending power. But it's scary, right? It really is scary. It'd be really interesting to see someone put this type of chart together. Or I think it'd be actually a really good website, actually, to just for every country to go like type in your income, kind of click and enter, and then just work out what your tax is. And actually, yeah, it'd be nice actually if you just type in how much you earn and just click enter. And it'll tell you your tax like per country and like order it.
How much you're actually taking home.
Yeah. And go
VAT.
Die this year as well. So like what would you pass on of the money you earn? What would you pass on if you were to die this year? I can guarantee like there wouldn't be a single country where you have more than 50%. I can guarantee. And it would just be a variant of probably, I reckon it'd start at about 60 and go right up to like 95 of how much you get taxed per $100 that you earn.
Yeah, the Scandinavian countries love to tax quite deeply, don't they?
Yeah, they're quite socialist, yeah.
Anyway, should we talk about the next one? So, seems like a bit of a revelation.
This one was really interesting to watch as well. So it was Joe Rogan talking through how he believes that of all the cryptos, his words, he believes that Bitcoin has the most likely possibility of becoming a universal, viable currency. You can see the cogs whirring round in his head as he's speaking about this too. And it made me wonder whether or not he is finally not only swallowing the Bitcoin, the orange pill, but he's also digesting true Bitcoin fundamentals and coming to his own conclusion that this is the way. Because if he is, he's in danger of being cancelled.
Oh man, Joe is he's been in danger of being cancelled ever since.
I was going to say, I was reading his wiki not so long ago, and it's like the controversy surrounding ivermectin, COVID, Fauci. You know, he's been told off so many times. And who is it? one of the old rockers from the 60s said, who's meant to be against the establishment, said, "Oh, if you don't get rid of Rogan, I'm taking my music off your platform."
Oh yeah,
And Spotify
Yeah.
said, "Don't worry, we'll delete your music for you."
yeah.
he didn't even have to send a demand; they just deleted it.
Yeah. Yeah, he put a tweet out. That was great. That was during the freaking lockdown stuff. That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're meant to be
Yeah.
anti-establishment, aren't you? And you're going against Rogan. I think it's because of ivermectin or him saying, whatever about the injections. It's just like, well, which one was not telling the truth?
Yeah. So I'll play the clip.
I mean, the real fascinating crypto is Bitcoin. To me, I mean, that's the one that I think has the most likely possibility of becoming a universal viable currency. And it's, it's limited in the amount that there can be. It's, people mine it with their own computer. It's like, that to me is very fascinating. And I love the fact that it's been implemented. And that at least I've had Andreas Antonopoulos on the podcast, and when he talks about it, he's living it. He's spending all of his money. Everything he gets paid is in Bitcoin. He pays his rent in Bitcoin. Everything he does is in Bitcoin.
It's good because he talks about having Andreas on, doesn't he? Andreas Antonopoulos, and he hasn't had a Bitcoiner on for quite a while.
Isn't he a shitcoiner though?
He is now, but he wasn't when he went on, which is good really, because I think his last appearance was 2017. Something like that, and I think he went on also in like 2015. So
I haven't
Joe
really seen much of Andreas actually at all.
He's not a name which I hear about anymore.
No, he's blocked, and all the maxis have got rid of him. Well, I've talked about him at length numerous times in this podcast. Like he still is a hero of mine. He is the guy. If anyone I can credit with orange pilling me, it was Andreas. Like his early videos. Because when you go back to 2015, 2016, there was no podcasts, there was no websites, there was no books, there was just crappy little videos of Bitcoin conferences. And Andreas was one of the guys that taught so eloquently. And like I've said, it's in the Q&A after his talks where I really got orange pilled, because people were asking the questions that I was thinking. What about this? What about that? Come on, this is too good to be true. And his answers were so good. So it is good that at least at that point in his career, he went on Rogan and didn't successfully orange pill Rogan at the time, but he planted enough seeds. And now Rogan is starting to see the things that Andreas was saying about the fiat system just playing out in front of his eyes. And obviously Bitcoin hasn't gone away. It hasn't been a fad that's come and gone. It's 10 years on pretty much now from when Andreas first went on Rogan. And he's seeing, holy shit, Bitcoin's still around. It's a very strong price. And everything he said about the banking system and about fiat is happening. It's all just playing out. So maybe these Bitcoin guys are right. So I hope this is the early sign of Joe going, maybe it's time to get another Bitcoiner on. And I'd love a Saifedean or a Saylor or Jack Mallers to go on Rogan and just fucking prop up, give him the updated spiel.
Jack Mallers or Jack Dorsey probably most likely, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I don't want Jack Dorsey on, but Jack Mallers, yeah. I've never really ever heard Jack Dorsey speak eloquently about Bitcoin, and he is a Bitcoiner, but he'll get the conversation will veer into Twitter and all that bollocks. I don't care. Jack Mallers.
The person I would like is more Jeff Booth, because the way that Jeff Booth speaks, or Lynn Alden, yeah.
I think Lynn Alden's a bit too highbrow for the audience, though.
Oh, man, if you've seen Rogan, like he has astrophysicists.
Yeah, but I watched Lynn Alden's just something else, so I think she's a bit beyond what he'd interview.
You haven't seen his professors that he's had on. They're like,
yeah, I watched a few of the professors, but I think Lynn's on a different level.
Lynn is so sharp. I've been watching.
That's what I mean. I think it's a bit too intense to attract the audience to.
Well, I'd actually like to see it because Lynn in
Oh yeah, I would love to
one
see it
format
personally, but I don't think it would
is
appeal to everyone.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Safety might be my pick because he'd be entertaining as fuck.
Oh, it'd be hilarious.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the problem, isn't it? It would get into funny memes and then missing the actual point of why he's there and the purpose of actually orange pilling people. And that's why I go back to maybe a Lynn or Jeff Booth, because it would actually make people think critically and kind of take it seriously and go beyond the fact that, oh, it's just a person with a tin hat, a virtual tin
I think
hat.
Jeff Booth or Jack Moorless would be for me. Those would be the two. Like Safedine, I get a lot of enjoyment after of watching him, but he's very dry. And then, like you said, Jack Dorsey, maybe not, because in retrospect, I haven't heard him speak a lot about Bitcoin.
Obviously, Saylor is always a good one as well, but then Saylor could easily just be misconstrued as a billionaire already, and therefore he's just doing it to line his own coffers. But we've seen the journey of Saylor, and people, I guess, that would be listening to Rogan are only seeing and listening to him for the first time, because coming to Rogan, you're going to be exposed to a brand new, typically non-Bitcoin audience, and therefore it has to be somebody that has the credibility and the ability to transcend over and above the hardcore Bitcoin crowd.
I do think it's one of the things we actually need to slightly agree on as a Bitcoin community. Who are we putting forward to Rogan? Because it's come up a few times, and there's always quite a fierce debate about it. And then I think what ends up happening is Rogan just gets fucking inundated with like a dozen names, and he goes, "I don't freaking know who to pick. I'm not picking none of them." Like we just need to
Jack Moorless would have. I think because he's quite young, Jack Moorless would, I think, have appeal. Jeff Booth is probably a good choice as well.
Yeah,
in the way which he speaks.
Jack does have a few angles to go from at his age and his company, and he was part of the El Salvador stuff, so I think it could work, yeah. But yeah, hopefully Joe's like he is warming up and he gets a Bitcoiner on just to refresh him, because he's at least 5 years out of date, which fair play for him to. He's had the core essence of Bitcoin delivered to him. But I think he's then walked away from it to a certain extent, and then he's seeing what's happening in fiat, and he's going, "That seems to be."
When you're too rich, he's got a disconnect from the actual need.
Oh, of course.
I think it's more of the case of, our pod, and I genuinely mean this, our pod will get more traction when price goes up because it will have more eyes on it. And I feel like Joe Rogan will equally be the same. He's not interested right now because it's not a hot topic. He's not thinking, do you know what? It's about time I have a Bitcoiner on. It's the same as, all of the other hit podcasts that are out. But that's why, unfortunately, the pod we never go on to name, but McCormack does consistently
McCook.
McCook has good guests.
I've gone off him big time. I can't. It's one of the things which he said lately. I was just like kind of going, I struggle to listen to him. I put on one of his the other day and I just turned it off.
He's a moron.
Yeah, he is.
But it's still trending as, if not the
we
need to work, isn't it?
We need to find someone else to host those pods. Get rid of
that. Again, Natalie Brunel, she's got a consistent format. Pomp obviously went off the boil and is nowhere to be seen. We've got Breedlove, but Breedlove, oh my god, the way and the setting of where he interviews people, it's everyone says it in the comments. It's like a torture camp. It's like a prison. I don't know.
Doesn't it play some like music at the start.
I don't know.
I've listened to
might
what maybe
but
Breathe Blood, and I've just been like, I can't like this music. Just doesn't really do it.
it's like an
Or listen to
interrogation
the
room, though. The the set or wherever is interviewing them, it's awful. It really is. If you look at it, it's like concrete walls, two people, obviously him facing the guest, and yeah, it's just bad, really bad.
And then Pomp is probably too busy sleeping on his 7 mattress, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
This is the problem, right? Is I think getting someone that's a proper Bitcoin maxi, because so far everyone you've named isn't even a Bitcoin maxi, or
McCook claims that he is a full-on Bitcoiner, but refuses to say maxi because he gets grief off all the maxis for being a moron.
yeah, and he doesn't want to associate with us, so so we need a proper Bitcoin maxi who is proud to say it, which is basically just takes balls, because it means you're anti the government, and he isn't really anti-government. He's kind of pro-Bitcoin, but still thinks that it's all just fucking conflicted. He doesn't, and he's too stupid to be able to work out what he really thinks. So Jack Mallers started a podcast, but then that seems to have gone away, because the problem is like he's too busy, and no doubt I don't doubt he is. And then you got Saylor. Like Saylor can't ever do a podcast because he does 40-minute anecdotes. So like, any guest is going to be, they'll say hello and then goodbye probably. And then Saylor will just rant about Bitcoin for an hour and a half in the middle.
Jeff Booth, maybe we had the time, because I think he's into everything.
But if you think about the shows that are out there that, who already has a platform, because going back to, again, Lynn, what Lynn has done, I feel, is really good, is the fact that she's not bothered trying to create her own platform, but she's gone on those that do have it, and they're very eager to have her on her own platform, on their platform. And she goes on, talks, she boosts their numbers, and then she goes off. She doesn't need to consistently drop knowledge on her own platform and build up a following, because by doing what she does best, which is the newsletters and then the interviews, she's managed to create her own audience and own following.
So maybe by getting Ralph Lennox onto the pod, we could be the new show.
Exactly that. That's where I'm really vying for.
The Bitcoin.
Who's going to message Ralph Lennox's daughter and get it?
I was going to say, Mr. All In is in the conversation at the moment.
Yeah,
let's do it.
And then we'll try and get him on, and then we'll ask him to send a few signed copies to Susie, and I'll go and pick them up. Hey, presto! For the next meal, we'll have a signed copy, apart from Miss No Show.
Fantastic. Well, Mrs. No Show doesn't read, so it's only 3 copies.
Yeah, he could have a picture.
Let's definitely make that happen.
So on to the next one, Bitcoin history. I read this, and interesting article just to read about it. So it's someone who sold so many coins that it affected the price. But there's just one bit which I think the purpose of the article, it leads into SegWit, and it's not an area which I particularly know. So I think it requires a bit of an explanation. So long article, really interesting. So it talks about, I suppose, someone's conviction and lack of conviction and conviction again, and kind of a cycle. So this guy, he had 36,000 coins in about 2013, 2014, $8, so $288,000 originally. And he sold 30,000 of them at $300, well, between 300 and 350. So you got about 9 million for them. But then he started looking at the arena and admitted he made a wrong choice and started to come back in about 1,000. But one point is he sold 30,000. He didn't sell 6,000. So that's quite clear in the start of the article, unless they've just done a typo. So he had 6,000. If he's still got those 6,000, he's got 135 million in Bitcoin. plus whatever he bought back in at 1,000. And bear in mind, he had a treasure chest of 9 million at that point as well. So when he went to sell, I think the important point is when people started seeing the selling, they realized it would take the price down. So a lot of holders of Bitcoin started buying up at that price. So the market didn't crash, which is, good. It's a little bit, you kind of think, oh, it's a bit manipulating the market. But then you think, would Bitcoin, if it crashed so badly at that point, ever have got to where it is now? To a point that platforms are using it, a country uses it, people are talking about it for legal tender for various other countries. We're looking at ETFs. We're looking at what the next innovation, for someone, I certainly wasn't around back then, but was it that kind of big history point, which could have been a key turning point, which could have destroyed Bitcoin?
Yeah, this is before my time as well, which is why I stumbled across this. I just found it fascinating that, in the early days of Bitcoin, obviously this guy, he must have been independently wealthy before Bitcoin. He YOLO'd in at $8 and then was almost kind of holding the price of Bitcoin to ransom, because every time the price went up, he was taking profits, and people could see that it was his account, and he was called the bear whale because he was literally keeping the price of Bitcoin down. And then everyone could see his account, they knew he was active, and so he was constantly taking gains. And it's like, when are we gonna get through the bear whale? Because every time the price goes up, he sells some and it comes back down.
I suppose the point about this is how many coins were about in about 2014. That's probably a key point to this one, because if he's got 36,000, it wouldn't have been 36,000 of what are we up to, 19 million. It would have been substantially lower.
Or 36,000, it would have been quite around $100 a coin, something like that around there.
Yeah, but
in 2014.
Yeah, you think there could have been, a couple of million coins or something at that point.
Oh, there will be. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so his holdings were absolutely humongous.
Yeah, and they are obviously now as well. But yeah, it's just interesting because it's obviously these days are long gone. And I was seeing part of this when I first came in. There were certain addresses that people would look at and go, oh no, if this guy sells, then the bear's coming back, we can't keep going up. And this is essentially like the slaying of him, because every time the price was going up and he'd be selling, and he was essentially capping the price of Bitcoin at $300, because he sold essentially 30. He didn't sell all these 30,000 coins at once. He was just selling them bit by bit. He didn't want to crash the price completely. He was just trying to get the maximum price for his money. So he was just selling them in tranches. So the price of Bitcoin just couldn't get above $300, because every time it did, he would sell another 1,000 coins, and it'd be like, oh my god, when's this guy going to fucking run out of money? And essentially, like, eventually he runs out of money, the price goes shooting up, and he ends up buying back in at $1,000. And you go, there we go. That is the categoric slaying of a bear whale who was basically wrong about the price of Bitcoin. He thought it'd done its thing. But then, he obviously then talks about SegWit at the bottom, and who knows if this is a bit of revisional history from him, because he's anonymous, and a lot of years have gone by when he shares his story of what he was doing back then. But he seems to be saying he was pushing for SegWit, and it really needed that adoption.
The SegWit is to allow more transactions on a block. Is that correct?
Yeah, it helped scalability of Bitcoin. Yeah, and SegWit also then enabled Lightning to be possible, and Taproot now. So it was huge. And this was when I was just getting into Bitcoin when SegWit was being talked about, and this was kind of when the big Bitcoin war kind of kicked off. So the losers of the SegWit battle ended up forking off and doing Bitcoin Cash, BSV.
Oh, that must have gone well. They must have chosen the right track for that.
There you go. So if anything, it was great. This is Bitcoin in action again, because when you're living through this thing, I came in SegWit and UASF was all going around, user activated soft fork, I was confused as fuck. I'm like, what the hell is all this? And it says the baptism of fire. But essentially what it managed to do is it just, all the scammers and grifters, for whatever reason, were on the wrong side of SegWit. So they lost. They didn't want to activate it.
Was Bitcoin Cash, Craig, what right?
Mainly Roger Ver, but and Craig Wright, yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a bit before our time. And like,
Yeah.
Bitcoin Cash, the only thing which I really know about is I was just going, please don't let me have bought Bitcoin Cash by mistake at the start.
Well,
This comes down to network effects, doesn't it? And it also, it's a couple of things actually. So it kind of defeats the argument from people coming into Bitcoin now who say, oh, well, the boat's already sailed, so I'll go for the other one. Because the network effect of where Bitcoin is right now is so large that it's hard, if not impossible, for another to then come and catch up with it.
But it's also, these others, like once again goes to people don't understand what Bitcoin is. Back to it's the ledger. Oh, I'll go for Ethereum. I'll go for SHIB. I'll go for XRP. What are they in relation to Bitcoin? Are they the same? No.
And the market cap of it, and obviously the fundamentals of the decentralization of Bitcoin and all these good things. And people really have to, they don't think about it and they don't get it. But when they do get it, then they obviously stick with Bitcoin. And another point is the fact that with Bitcoin, we know that the market cap is there with it, and people just need to people know the 21 million, but do they really understand the significance of this in comparison to anything else? Because I always say, well, tell me another thing that we cannot make more of, with a guarantee that we cannot make more of, and everyone struggles.
Yeah. Well, all those people that thought they were going to be, Bitcoin Cash, BSV, whatever before, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Platinum. There was so many fucking Bitcoins. Every single one is down 99.5% since then. So every single person that thought they were getting in at the ground floor on this new coin, totally wrecked. But
back to the other point as well. So as we go along this road and journey, we're going to find a lot of people, maybe like this guy, that reach their moon, so they sell off when really, obviously, it's too soon. So on the road to 75k a Bitcoin, it's going to be a lot of money to some people who are potentially like that person who's a whale. And therefore, they'll tap out. Whereas if you can continue to hold on and ride it even further, then it's just going to be amazing.
I was going to say, I know that my wife would be calling me to sell. We had a conversation.
Of course you will.
Yeah, we had a conversation about
it
the other day. And she's like, so how much do you have? And I was like, told her 10 sats for everyone. And she's like, so when it goes up, are you going to sell? And I was like, no.
I'll buy more.
Yeah, I need to buy more. I haven't got enough. We're deciding which kid to sell first.
Is this whilst you were orange pilling her during her birthday day?
What? Do you want to know what my safe words were?
Naturally.
Quantitative easing.
Oof. Strong.
I was going to say, you can tell who listens to the whole pod when we're not here. So do we want to nip on to the next one? So we're interested in that Bitcoin history, but we've got, I think, it's quite a good week for stories, actually. Really good agenda here.
Yeah.
Strolling. So I don't think I
strong
contributed
agenda,
anything
Mr.
to
Ronan.
this. My next one, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So I actually mentioned this earlier, and I know where that thought came into my head from because it's from a later story. And it's a newspaper article which someone has shared on Twitter from January the 3rd, 2009. And there's two main headlines in here. Really interesting. So one, we talked about Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. When's it going to happen? So what was his name? Was it the guy early who...
George Osborne? Or George Osborne? It wouldn't be.
No,
would it?
BitMEX,
Oh.
the CEO.
Oh, what?
I was just saying that he was talking about the crash of the dollar.
Oh.
But anyway, so someone we were talking about earlier, I can't remember the BitMEX CEO his name, but anyway, he's talking about the collapse of the dollar.
Arthur Hayes. Right, yeah.
Yeah, Arthur Hayes. So we got the chance on brink of second bailout for banks, which is inevitable. We've known it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And the one which is such a coincidence because it's in line with it, Israel prepares to send tanks and troops into Gaza. What's happening at the moment? So massive coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bizarre that on January 3rd, 2009, banks about to collapse and Israel is sending tanks and troops into Gaza. So what is that? 15, 14 years later. Banks are yet again on the brink of a second bailout because they've if you're talking American banks here, this is obviously UK, but the banks had their first bailout earlier in the year. Who knows how close they are to their second bailout? And here we are with Israel.
Yeah, we've had a couple of banks bailed out in the UK as well, haven't we? We had one with the woke nonsense. I think there were two actually.
Did they? What this year?
Yeah, in the last year, I can't remember the names of them, but I think we had two British ones, or ones with lots of British base in there. And what was it? The Conservatives or the government, I can't remember the phrase, but they said that they would basically give them back it or something like that. They said it wasn't a bailout, but they said that they would back it. Because I remember your comment on LinkedIn to that guy who couldn't read a share chart.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, I remember. Yeah, so here we are. It's bizarre, isn't it? 14 years apart, and it almost makes me just think, is anything even changed? It's just, but.
Well, I was going to say one big thing has changed. You can't eat out from £5. Can't even get a starter for that.
And the price of Bitcoin went from 0 essentially on this day to what we're on right now, £22,307 a Bitcoin. A hell of a change from when Satoshi.
It's been a lot of tulips.
Yeah.
14 years later, lots of peaks, lots of troughs, but we're still here. Yeah,
maybe it is something. Just maybe you just need that 1% in your portfolio as a bit of a hedge.
Man, look at the bottom of the page. You've got a 99p pint there. Remember the days where you could get a pint for less than £1?
So
you can't get them less than £5 now. So
a meal, £5, and a pint, 99p. £5.99 for a nice little meal. Now, £4.50, I reckon, probably get them a pint. So not quite a fiver. And a meal, I think you'd be lucky to get a main course for £12. So that's £16.
Yeah, because if you just focus on the beer for a minute, that has gone up astronomically, hasn't it? That's if we just say, even if you say £4 a pint, that's 400%, right? But it's basically been 15 years. Inflation should halve the price of everything every 15 years.
So it should be £2.
A pint should be a £2, yeah. It's gone up double what it should have. And I think the food, to be fair, roughly is about in line with that. Food is roughly doubled. Because obviously this is eat out from a fiver. That's a deal, right? That's an advert in the top of the screen there.
No, here we go. So 99 is just a single pub. So it's still pretty bad. So a pub pint average is £1.69. It says in small print there. I've just caught it.
Oh, okay.
So it's still really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
It's around about in line with the food because it's £5 up to £12, £1.69 up to say £4.
Yeah, it's about the same then. Yeah, yeah.
But it hasn't just halved the money; it's beyond halving within 15 years.
Yeah. But it's just weird, isn't it? How obviously the last couple of days, everyone's up in arms, like pray for Israel. Da, da, da. You go, this has been going on for decades. They've been bombing each other, raping and killing children for decades, and for some reason we've just picked on this one and gone, let's shove this on the TVs and social media everywhere, and really get intimate with the people that are dying and the children that are dying, and shove it on TV and get everyone really het up about it. And I'm just looking at this going, these guys have been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
We just didn't put it on TV before. But the only thing that's changed is we put this one on TV, and I'm going to be in the skeptical brain that I have. It's, well, why are you doing this? You go, you're whipping everyone up into a fury here, aren't you? Into supporting something, and it's going to be
supporting the side.
Shit tons of money going into Israel, isn't it? And it's going to be
along with Ukraine, but it does go into send Levellock's earlier comment that they're stretched so thin now.
But I think this is one of those things where I can't, because the thing is that this looks engineered. So why would you engineer spreading yourself even thinner? It's almost like giving a need. It's like almost America needs to grab even more land. So is it going to, because obviously we know as they've helped Ukraine, they have essentially co-opted and taken their natural resources. So is that what they're doing here now? Are they essentially, is America spreading into Israel now? That's all I can assume, right? It's
always been in Israel, so it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah,
And also Israel, it doesn't even have oil.
Yeah. But yeah, it's sad
I
that
don't know
the way of the world.
What is the relationship as to why? Because there's always a reason, but what are they specifically getting from Israel?
Yeah, I was going to say they already own it, so
yeah,
I don't really understand. I've got no idea what's going on. They don't have massive resources, from what I know, but I never appreciated that Ukraine did. Ukraine have various minerals and metals, don't they, which make them massive. Israel could have something which we don't know about, because you never would have guessed what Ukraine had under the surface.
No, it might just be a complete distraction. Just to forget about the fact that you can't afford to go on holiday and pay your car payments and mortgage. Your kids aren't getting blown up in the street. But it's super sad, right? It's one of those where I still just, it gives me, I'm both like bullish and bearish on Bitcoin when I read this. It's just, in 15 years, I just really would have hoped we'd have done more in a way. But then you kind of go, you probably expected too much of a currency, because it's the same wars are carrying on. It's the same bollocks, isn't it? Like Bitcoin's existing.
You've got to think like
Bitcoin's done nothing on a financial scale in the financial landscape. Bitcoin is a gnat. It's an insect, and there's these big freaking whales and bears walking around. That is fiat. And they're causing all this damage, and children are dying. Like, it's just these wars going on. It's just needless. And you just want Bitcoin just to fucking take over. But it's like, it's not Bitcoin's fault. It's the people. Like, Bitcoin's just sat there. You can just any fucker can buy it. So it's the, why aren't these people buying it? And like, if we all just brought it, this stuff ends. This is manipulated.
I think you'd end up with a lot of smaller states, wouldn't you? Like Israel would be broken up even smaller, the UK would, US would. You'd end up with very small governments and areas, because there wouldn't be the need anymore for these super big governments. I think it'd be uncontrollable.
And as we know, where Israel going to get all their weapons now to bomb this shit out of the Palestinians? America already going to send them.
I read some rumors that they're saying that the Hamas got their weapons from Ukraine, which came from the US anyway. So
yeah, like nearly all the weapons in the fucking on the globe are either from Great Britain or America.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and that's been like a very known fact for forever. That I knew that even before I knew about the money was corrupt. It was like where are all these Middle Eastern countries that they have very like they're almost third world countries sometimes, but they've got top of the range guns and tanks and missiles, and it all says made in the USA or made in Britain on it. You go, how the fuck did they get all those? It's like, oh, we sold them to them. It's like, why the fuck did we do that? And then we go in and hold peace talks, and you go, why what you armed one side, like, and then it's just, and obviously it's all for profit, it's all for fear. Like we know war's profitable, the war machine, like, and genuinely, the biggest reason I think these wars always kick off, like other than just capturing resources, like these big country type level wars gives a huge reason for governments to exist. And I think it scares the people because the people go, holy shit, if something like that happened in my country, oh, I feel safe because my government has a nice big army, so we would be protected. And he goes, oh, thank God we have a government then. If we didn't have a government, we wouldn't have protection. You go, yeah, protection from who? Like another government with a huge military. That's who you're. So yeah, it's just it's the fear mongering and the profiteering that comes with these wars, and man, we just like war won't go away. Like Jesus, like even when we're on a gold standard, we're on rhinestones, we're on beads. Humans love fighting.
It's all about ego most of the time.
But at least the fights tend to be quite short fights, and we don't have decade-long wars. And like this Palestine-Israel thing it's gone on for far too long. And the problem that I've seen on the social media side of it in the last couple of days has just been it's so polarizing. It's so pro-Israel, and it seems to be if you're a Palestinian right now, you're not human, you're a monster, you're a beast, you're an animal, and you deserve to be essentially just nuked off the planet. And you go, well, how the fuck have we got to this point where there's essentially like 2 or 3 million people that live in Gaza that are essentially under like this Hamas rule, and the majority of people, like, and all these wokey cokies that are supposedly think the best in everyone and have their pronouns listed, they're fine with wiping 3 million people off the planet. Half of them are children.
Yeah.
You know, how is that the virtuous thing to do right now? These are all the mask wearers, the triple vaxxed, supporting Ukraine, and now they're supporting to kill 3 million people. And I just read this going, before I would condemn 3 million people, it would take I would need a lot of fucking evidence to prove that every single one of those people is rotten to the core. And the second you present a 5-year-old kid to me, I'm like, well, that kid ain't rotten to the core. It's 5. Just parrot speaking what his parents have told it. So how about we don't nuke him just yet? Maybe he's got a chance. But yeah, when I go on Twitter right now, all these wokey cokies are like, wipe him off the planet. And you go, we need a freaking Bitcoin standard because these people are just completely brainwashed by the fiat system that are just at the moment that when they cheer on the whatever the current thing is, and the current thing is to hate these people, so they are just jumping on board and going fucking carrying that bag even further. And it's just like you're so easy to manipulate. It's almost sad to see it happening in real time. But
anyway, on that, dip into geopolitical news. Should we try and get back onto Bitcoin with a big story? It's a new record, new Bitcoin hash rate record, and they do say that hash rate precedes price, don't they? So it looks good. It looks like this could be a beginning to the halving, which we've been waiting for coming up.
Yeah, that graph is so fucking bullish, isn't it? Look at the state of that hash rate.
What's the number, by the way? I didn't manage to find a figure of how many. I mean, the zeros is
it's just the 420 that's important, and then what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 3, 18 zeros. But after 420, I honestly don't think that number has a word. It's like
it's just known as bullish.
trillion, billion. Yeah, it's fucking bullish. Yeah, it's but this just shows you, right? So this is like you said, hash power is much more reliable than price to gain on what the general momentum of Bitcoin is. So it's whenever people tell me like Bitcoin's volatile, I go, but it's not really. If you you just look at it on the price point, and price is quite easy to manipulate. Literally, as we saw before, where we talked about the Bitcoin history and the bear whale, a single person can hold the Bitcoin price hostage and chuck the price up and down. They can only do it for a certain amount of time, but they can do it. Now, when it comes to hash rate, there's no single person that can throw the hash power up and down. Hash power is hugely decentralized. It takes a huge amount of investment and then time and skills to set up these mining companies. And obviously, it's huge skin in the game because you could have just, instead of spending millions and millions on miners, you could have just bought Bitcoin. But they've chosen to go, no, we're in this for the long game. We think we can make more money by investing in the tech and energy and mining Bitcoin, and we will make more over the long term than we will just buying the asset. So these people have got huge skin in the game. And this is the metric that matters, because it's how many people on the planet are buying miners and in it for the long haul. And as you can see on this chart, it's very fucking up and to the right. It's pretty much going parabolic right now. And it's at all-time highs. So anyone that says, oh, Bitcoin's down in doldrums, it's 50% below its all-time high, you go, well, that's one metric. The other metric is hash power, and we are at all-time highs, and that's the metric that matters.
Bullish.
420 quintillion, to be exact.
Quintillion.
Yeah.
There we go. We have a number for it. I think that's a good way to leave it. So would this be a So Never Look story to finish with?
It was definitely aimed at So Never Look. If So Never Look wasn't on this pod, I wouldn't have put this story on.
I assume that So Never Look was the one who picked it out.
Oh no, it wasn't. He would have skated past this probably and buried it and pretended it didn't exist.
It's an interesting one. And I always say, there's definitely a place for property still, because whilst we love our digital assets, people will always need a roof over their heads.
They will, but will it be profitable to have multiple homes? Or as profitable as it has been? Will the price of property still go up at the same rate? Will debt still be at the same rate? That's the issues, isn't it? So,
but ultimately, we know that the fastest asset out there is Bitcoin. Hence the reason why we're on this pod. But I still believe the phrase "safe as houses" is still, still reliable.
It's
the reason.
If you look in a sound money environment, I think you've got to have the intention of going generations with things like housing, which isn't why most people buy housing now. It's to improve their life, have debts, which, on interest-only mortgages, which pay quickly. Whereas, on a Bitcoin stand, I feel like it would be large landowners. That's the only way it should get to it. Someone who plans generations in advance and takes a sacrifice for future generations. But then they do always say that usually wealth is spent within a few generations.
But
so do you want to take us to the story, Mr. Olin?
Yeah, go on. So this is basically just a story from a Bitcoiner called Ashley Giles. And he went out to dinner. Sounds like one of our dinners, actually, but all his mates seem to work in property. They're having a tough time. And so he tried to orange pill them, because obviously they're having a tough time in property because, as we know, interest rates have gone up. The failure of paying rent is going up. So people in property that have had it easy are finding it tougher. The taxes are going up, all that kind of stuff. So they're all complaining about the fact they're not making as much money in property anymore. He tries to orange pill them, but they just resist it, say nah. And but in the end, he's managed to convince them that they would have a one-on-one kind of session with them for a couple of hours, like individually. Because so he's like, oh, I've managed to get them, but they won't take it as a group. Like they've just been brainwashed into thinking Bitcoin is a scam. You know, property is the thing. The fiat system won't collapse, and so it's super hard to get in. I read this just going, holy shit! Like this was me. If I go back a couple of years, you know, going to dinner with you guys. Like you weren't all property guys, but you were investment guys. And I'm like, it's just Bitcoin, guys. That's just like, well, you're like, yeah. But if Bitcoin didn't exist, what else would you do? I'm like, well, that's a big hypothetical because then suddenly, I'm back in your world now. Now I'm like, I've got to forget everything. I've got to forget the entire reason why I'm buying Bitcoin. I've got to almost assume that entire hypothesis is wrong and assume that the economic and financial world won't collapse. Oh, right. Assuming that, right now, property probably is worth having. I probably would have a few other properties. Bonds would be a good like hedge for 10-20%. There's stocks for another and a good like diverse. But then I've got to put my brain to one side to allow myself to do that. Because 30 years ago, that would have been the case, but it's not 30 years ago now. It's today. And seeing debt and inflation as high as it is, I go, well, all these assets other than Bitcoin are going to get so severely damaged or taxed or just seized in some shape or form. So it's very hard for me to recommend anything that isn't Bitcoin because it's always got this, it's got like a freaking, there's a knife above its head and the government's holding it and you just go, well, when does it put it into that one? I don't know. That's the risk. Like the actual asset itself might be good, but the government are going to come for each of these assets as their power over the people erodes, as the confidence in their money also erodes. So the only thing that is safe from being confiscated is Bitcoin. And I just share this guy's frustration with his own mates going, they just don't get it. They're smart guys. They're not in the rat race, just like earning their money and spending it and being consumerism. You know, they're doing investments. They're into property for the right reasons. They're trying to get out of the game. They're trying to be smart with their money, but for whatever reason, they're brainwashed into thinking the financial system is going to be there forever. And when someone tells them that it could collapse and maybe you should buy some Bitcoin, they just dismiss it. And it's.
I definitely hear you, and ultimately, I've seen that the government have made it even more difficult for the average layperson to get out of the rat race, and so the barrier to entry is, it's steep. So, you will naturally be put off and turned away. And maybe you are turned to Bitcoin, but I still think it's I know we use the word hedge. I still do think it is a good hedge as well to do both.
Yeah, just this 1% is all you need to get going in your portfolio, or you can buy single sats if you're really tight.
Yeah,
let's go back to freaking Ralph here. Ralph freaking Lennox. If he got
does
it,
Ralph mention property?
No.
No,
Ralph's not into property. Don't be silly.
No.
I think he was actually, to be fair to him, because I think that's where maybe he made some of his money, but then he realized it isn't. I think he was in the age where you buy almost your kids a house. That would be one of your buy-to-lets would go to the kid and then you pass the mortgage on to them, but you'd already paid off a load of it or something. And that would almost be the investment. And I think he did talk about it a little bit early on. I think his background may have been in property a little bit, but then he's quickly pivoted out of it and gone into Bitcoin. But it amazes me that, this guy got it, right? And then you've got this guy who's clearly orange pilled to the max. He's a Bitcoin maxi, got a load of mates into their investments. They're about 40, I think he said in it. So they're not young, but they're youngish, not boomers. Pretty much in our demographic, really. Whenever I see 40-year-olds, I'm like, oh, fucking oldies. I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm in their category now, bollocks. And they just dismissed it. They don't even want to hear it. They don't even want to entertain.
But he does end it by saying, I think the uncertainty that is going on in the world right now, there's never been a better time. Saying, I can tell you it's the most far most captive audience from 12 months ago. It's nothing to do with the price. People are waking up but need educating fast. And it is all these circumstances. It's like, why the fuck does all this keep on happening in super quick time? We had COVID, we had the Suez Canal, we had Ukraine, Israel, and we have COVID mentioned every 5 minutes. And it's kind of going, why does it keep on happening? And mixing some financial crashes, banks going under. Why does everything cost 40% more?
Yeah, I think they used to have to, or they were able to spread their false flag bollocks events about every 5 years. But because the collapse is so imminent and they need to print money at such a rate, they're churning them out every 3 to 6 months now. And I think people are starting to go, there's too many freaking disasters that always require another fuck ton of money to be printed. Maybe they're making some shit up. And it's slowly but surely waking people up. And obviously then it always helps when people go just see it for real and they do their food shop and that £50 weekly shop now costs 150. That wakes people up.
Yeah. I think, from this and our conversations, I think I'm going to, next time someone asks me about Bitcoin, I'm going to ask them, what's money? And let's lead with the ledger conversation.
I don't think they'll understand that.
But the biggest problem you're going to have is what's a ledger.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They won't even.
Yeah, maybe work out a different word with that. But I have to come across someone who actually wants to talk to me about Bitcoin.
It kind of already blows their mind because the fact that the ledger, or if there is a ledger, is being kept by the government and that all transactions get back and are calculated back on this ledger, they've lost. It needs to be even more simpler than that.
Yeah. I have to think next time someone asks me about it, I'll see what way I can explain it and see if I can get any progress off that conversation, because you just can't start with Bitcoin.
No.
It's like going in dry.
Just get a bit of foreskin.
Yeah, it's not very pleasant for either of you.
Gonna get blood everywhere.
Right, well, there we have it. We're going to leave pod 116 on going in dry. So if you've made it this far, well done. This has been another podcast brought to you by the usual suspects, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show was a no-show. Quick stat, there are 32 Starbucks venues in Italy. So that is definitely there, and there is definitely a chance that Mrs. No Show popped into one whilst being there. Peace.